and you are watching Epic Sketch Time, Monday, December 5th. My name is Mark Monlux. I'm an illustrator, and I do a couple of web comics that you currently can't find right now. One's called The Comic Critic, which you can find in book format. Just contact me online, and I'm going to put a link in the doobly-doo of my online store. Who else is here tonight?
You first or me, Pa?
You go ahead, Kristen.
Okay. My name is Kristen Rollins. I'm one half of Wayward Studios, and I have worked on Jikosha and a comic called Aspect, and tonight I'm going to be continuing to do the line art prep for a new short story called Light and Shadow.
Very cool. My name is Pat McEwen. I do a comic called The Devil and Mr. Gandhi, and you can read it at devilandgandhi.com.
So on my screen is something I was doing earlier today. I typically hate doing design work, but this guy pays me, he's one of my best clients, and more he relies on me just to do quick little pop-out stuff like this for him. Isn't that just grand?
Jeez. You get paid to do that?
Yeah.
What a world.
Let's see, there was another version of this. You know the client's just going to ask for two versions sometimes, so. And the thing is, you don't want to give him like the worst thing imaginable, because then they'll go with that. So I try not to hand him anything. I absolutely don't have to.
Oh, I'm reminded of the Oatmeal's This Is How Terrible Websites Are Born comic that he did.
Yes, it's exactly like that.
Oh, God.
Come on.
Because if he has to go HH, I can take him. He's been sneezing.
I want to introduce Henry the dog here. I have him. He's going to say hello.
Oh.
He's a dachshund, a mini dachshund.
There's a dachshund? I've never seen a dachshund with
He's a
such
mini.
long fur.
He's a long-haired miniature dachshund. Go on. Oh.
Henry, come on. Henry, you want to erase?
So as always, I'm going to be working on some obscure movie aliens. What are you guys working on tonight?
Well, I already announced mine. I don't know if you actually explained your project yet, Patrick.
I did not. I was too busy holding up my dog. I will be working on pages to prepare for print for issue number 3 of The Devil and Mr. Gandhi.
So earlier today, I was talking about a movie called Harvey.
Harvey.
Have either one of you seen Harvey?
It's been a while, but I've seen it.
I don't think so, no. That doesn't sound familiar.
Oh, Jamie Stewart talks to an 8-foot-tall invisible rabbit.
Oh, yeah. Definitely have not seen that. The only movie I've seen where somebody talks to an invisible rabbit is, God, I can't remember the name of that movie at the moment. Well, now I feel silly. I've just been, like, spacing things out all day.
So, can you guys recognize this movie, Alien? It's from a less obscure science fiction film.
Ah,
Oh, Alien Mine.
yeah.
Enemy Mine. Yes, very
Enemy
good.
Mine. Sorry. Yeah, I watched that as a kid. That was a good movie.
Not to be confused with Enema Mine, which is.
Oh, not a good movie.
No.
Ew. I thought you guys were joking until you both agreed. Wow. That's really a movie?
Mm.
That's not one of mine.
Okay. Okay, you are joking. Good, because I would just lose my faith in humanity.
I do seem to remember that they said they were taping my colonoscopy the last time I went in. I didn't ask for the footage.
Oh. Hope it's not on YouTube.
You know, a topic got raised about copyright today at the earlier drawing session I was in. And I'm not sure. I then was in a teleconference call with my friend Daniel Abraham doing the Law and Artist videos. And we were doing a bunch of topics based on derivatives. And I don't think my conversation with him went into the specific details that was asked to me before about derivatives, but I now have a much clearer idea of what derivatives are. Daniel's great for helping me clarify my thoughts. I usually have a fairly good gist from reading interpretations.
How many episodes of that do you have up, Mark?
Let's see. I think there's currently 15 episodes up,
Hmm,
and we shot footage for another 3.
cool.
When we started off, they were long, like 7 minutes long, but I realized very quickly that long equals not watched. You can tell by going into YouTube how quickly people drop out of something, and they'll start watching it, and then they'll just go away.
Hmm.
And you haven't even gotten to the good stuff. Unless you do really quality stuff, like, say, have you guys ever watched anything produced by Crash Course?
Yes, I love Crash Course. I watched their entire History of the World series.
Yeah, I started off with their history of the U.S. and then went to history of the world, and then I was into psychology for a little while until I got bored. I tried to do the chemistry one, but I didn't even make it past episode 2. But I love their stuff, and so they do these wonderful. They're what, 10, 14 minutes at most?
Yeah, they seem like they range between like 8 minutes and 20 minutes, at least in the world history they did. I think they tended to shorten them because I think world history was the first Crash Course they did. And so they varied from like the shortest one was like 8 minutes and the longest one was a little over 20, I think. And there was something like 150 episodes.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think world history, or when they got to U.S. history after that, I think the longest one was like 16 minutes, and the shortest one was like 10. They seemed like they'd kind of found their...
They knew what their audience level was, and what I've been finding is, for me and Daniel, people have a really low threshold, especially when they're artists trying to research legal stuff. So we shoot for 3 minutes.
You know, that also helps for another reason, which is then people can go through your episodes and maybe get more specific information.
Yeah.
You know, they might not be going to your episodes to get the entire breadth of knowledge. They might just be like, oh, I really need to know what this is. Hey, Mark's got an episode that's 3 minutes long that just explains that. Perfect.
Yeah, that's what we decided to go for. We decided, but my friend Daniel is a lawyer, and as is well known amongst lawyers, they're not known for truncating their verbiage. So we usually talk about it for about 5 minutes ahead of time to make sure we got all the bullet points down. And then we do a dry run, and then I say, okay, Daniel, don't go into that story there. We don't have time for it. And, let me say something so it doesn't look like the Daniel show. And we've pretty much got the format down. It's just a matter of trying to get the production a little cleaner. So rather than doing stuff on Google, because we were having the worst luck with Google, in that the dialogue would be like, it got really bad where the dialogue was half a minute late on the video. So you'd start watching the video and the dialogue would be like half a minute in. So I mean, not even minor lip sync. I mean, just way off. And I found that one of my earliest videos, a commercial for my book, that the sound tracking on it is way off. So I need to contact the guy that originally did that and see if he can repost it. And I'm worried that he might have mislaid it, or he's not the most efficient individual out there. And his laptop that was on might have crashed and died, no backup, that type of thing.
Oh. Archive. Then archive your archive. Then archive the archive of the archive. Ugh.
And I didn't think to back up YouTube because I thought, YouTube's fine, but it never occurred to me that YouTube files can become corrupt with time. So I doubt if I'll go in and look at it again and it'll be all nice and correct. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a magic fairy went in there when I wasn't looking. The magic YouTube fairy. Oh, and we're joined by Bill. Bill, how about an introduction?
Hi, I'm Bill Morse. I'm a cartoonist and illustrator, and I do a comic strip called Rhapsodies. Sorry I'm late. I had some technical difficulties getting in.
I'm going to Twitter Stowe and see what's up with him.
I am right here.
Oh, yay, Stowe's here. How about an introduction?
Sure. My name is James Stowe. I'm a cartoonist who does a little webcomic called Sidekick Quests. You guys were engaged in such a lively conversation, I decided not to interrupt.
Now I'm going to see what I can do about including in the doobly-doo the podcast that Stowe is on this week.
I just listened to it. I liked it a lot. It sounded really good. And I'm not just saying that because I was on it. I liked it.
And that was called the...
It is called Literally Tacoma, yeah. It's a very hyper-local writers podcast. But I had a lot of fun being on it.
And last week I was on a podcast for Grit City, which again is a Tacoma podcast.
Tacoma, filthy with podcasts.
Wish we had that problem in Renton.
You have to be filthy with something in Renton, right?
I think we're just filthy with filthy.
There you go.
Not much cleaning going on here. Especially like the streets, just like untrimmed trees and leaves everywhere.
So far I've been on, I think, 4 different podcasts. There's the Convergence Zone, Grid City. Let's see. Oh man, I totally forgot the name of the third one. And another one was, I think you and I were both on it still. This was Army at different times. Some guy just in his living room talking about
That's
Game
every-
of Thrones half the time.
Talking about Game of Thrones? Huh.
There's one part of the podcast where he and the other guy
Yeah.
do nothing but go into the game and talk about the latest episode of Game of Thrones.
Is that your podcast? The one you were on?
No, well, I was on that one, but not the most recent one. The most recent one I was on was Grit City. I'm trying to remember the name of this other podcast. I should start keeping track of them.
That would be beneficial.
And I know you've done a couple besides this one.
I do. I like being on podcasts, actually. That I find it very refreshing.
It feeds into your vanity.
I've got a lot of that. I like to talk about stuff that I enjoy. So podcasting for me is, I like listening to podcasts too, so it's great. And I've gotten over that thing where you hate hearing your own voice.
Oh, wrong hand.
How about you, Patrick? Have you been on any podcasts to promote your book?
Yes. There's one that I think I've been on like 3 episodes so far. It's called The Trade, about comics in general. That's run by another comics creator by the name of Melanie Chitwood. And I've been on there several times.
Is it a good one, I assume, since you've been on it multiple times?
It is, yeah. No, it's very enjoyable. And I mean, it's mostly just talking about, obviously no live sketching like this fantastic podcast.
Sure.
But,
Nice.
but it's, yeah, it's good.
Oh, is it a visual podcast or is it just an audio podcast?
It's both. So she records with a Google Hangout session, but then she has an account through Libsyn. So it goes, you can download it through your normal channels like iTunes and Stitcher as an audio podcast, or you can watch it on YouTube.
Oh, that's cool. So what is everybody working on tonight?
Well, I am on the home stretch of my Christmas story, and being plagued with my with spending a bit of time being plagued by my
Are you
inability.
being plagued, Bill? I
What?
just asked. Are you being plagued?
I was getting to that. Plagued by my inability to draw reindeer.
Okay, I got
There's
it.
not-
Take a look.
I don't know if there's too many people that have a real ability to draw reindeer. That's definitely kind of a specialized talent there.
Yeah, so
I
then
wouldn't let yourself feel too bad for not innately having the skill set to draw reindeer.
the main thing was it was sort of took too long to get something that was average.
Horses are hard. They're one of those universally recognized pains in the butts to draw.
Oh, I still can't draw horses.
All of my horses look like cows.
My horses they don't even look like cows. My horses are so bad.
Can you
That's
draw
why.
a cow?
I don't draw equestrian comics. Yeah.
Yeah, I look funny at the people who do draw equestrian comics. Mostly because I don't think I've ever met anybody who does
Hey.
do that.
Well, there's Donna Barr. Have you ever watched her draw her centaurs?
Oh,
Her-
I have
That's
not a Centaur comic. That's a whole different level of stuff.
I swear all of the female comic creators that I follow in the past year, it seems like all of them have like suddenly had the same idea to start drawing like centaur characters in their free sketching. No, I mean it. They all look really good too. It's like, God damn it, another reminder that I can't draw horses.
Outside of Narnia, I've never really seen a centaur work in a storyline.
I don't know that I've seen that many people try though.
So Donna Barr does this comic called Stints, or is it called Afterlife or something like that?
It's called After Dead. The Stints is she pretty much merged all of her characters into one concept. So Stints, the centaur, is one of the Bavarian centaur, is one of the regular characters.
Stints, the Bavarian Centaur.
Yes.
Awesome.
Donna likes drawing things that are German, in Nazi uniforms, slightly gay-looking.
Not so awesome.
No, her original comic that she did when I first met her, called The Desert Peach, was
Oh, I have met her.
satire. It was about let's see. Who was the field marshal in Africa? Okay, so it's Rommel's gay brother, who's got his own corps of troops, sort of like misfits like him, and he's fairly openly gay, which is, a really hard thing for a Nazi to be. And the satire was just brilliantly written.
Yeah, it started out as just a comedy, and then she started getting serious with it.
And then it's like someone came along and hit her in the head with a sledgehammer. And the next thing you know, she's got these centaurs on the brain, and she had such a huge following with the Desert Peach, and then she kind of lost her audience a little bit.
Wait, are the characters from the Desert Peach in the Centaur comic?
Well, they are now, but Edwin decided after Dead.
Because that's kind of awesome.
And the thing is, she can draw like the wind. The first 24-hour comic I did, she was finished and done in 8 hours.
And copying an attitude about it.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
She doesn't even sketch. She just goes straight on the page with the pen and flies into it. Her layout, her style is very loose leaf. The structure of it is very organic looking, but it goes totally with her style. And the thing is, she's an excellent, excellent drawer. But she does like having fun with the whole afterlife thing. It's all over the map. And she lives out in Clallam Bay. Got one of her signed posters that I picked up back in the late 80s in the closet. I think I bought it at a silent auction that's held yearly by the Cartoonist Northwest group. So, Bill,
Yes.
Can you make any announcements in regards to Cartoonist Northwest?
Oh, yeah, I took over. Well, more accurately, I finally decided that I was out of excuses for running for president, so I figured I'd take a crack at it and see if I could make it relevant again.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, cartoon. Unfortunately, CNW is sort of degenerated over the years. Because it's always frustrating because Seattle is well known for its comic scene, and for all our talk about being one of the clubs, I don't think CNW is really part of that scene.
It's always
So,
been since its inception, what, 35, 40 years ago?
yeah.
It's always gone out of its way to include fans of cartooning as well as cartoon artists. And that's kind of been to it's hampered it sometimes. Because the people who are serious about doing cartooning work tend to stop coming.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing weirder than being like the person drawing cartoons in with a bunch of people that are like quizzing you on like random cartoon knowledge, and you're like, I not read all those things. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have quit going if it wasn't for the fact that it's at the art store 3 blocks from my place.
That would be Artists and Craftsmen, right?
That is correct.
And here in Tacoma, we were very excited that an Artists and Craftsmen has opened up.
It's a really nice franchise.
It's not quite as big as the one in Seattle, but they have some different stuff. They didn't have as much casting material as the store up inside Seattle. I was a little disappointed by that.
I didn't know you did casting.
I'm thinking about doing some casting.
What kind of casting?
Well, that's part of the thing. I gotta figure out what type of movie-related casting I can get away with.
Well, no, I meant like material, because there's a vast difference between like plastic casting, ceramic casting, resin casting, metal casting, jewelry casting.
Well, at first I was thinking about doing resin casting, but then I realized if I did plastic casting, it would be a lot lighter, and it looks just as good, and it ships for a lot less. So I wouldn't be having to deal with a higher shipping cost.
How large of sculptures are you talking about?
I haven't decided yet.
Because if it's small sculptures, your shipping costs are really pretty negligible in difference between resin and plastic. If you're talking about larger sculptures, like something that's like 8 inches or above, then yeah, it might be a consideration. But you do get better detail with resin. That's the reason it's heavier, is that it's denser and has a finer grain to it, so you can get better details from the casting.
Have you done much casting?
I have not, but my coworker was a mini figurine enthusiast, so he talked my head off about it, and that's why I know as much as I know. I have not actually had a chance to do it myself. No. But I know that was something he was always talking about, was that the resin figurines had much better detailing. He liked to show me all sorts of really cool macro shots of the figurines to showcase like why this one's better or that one's better or this sculptor's better. It was basically what we did when there wasn't anything to do, was he would yap my head off about figurines and miniatures and miniature painting, miniature casting. Some pretty cool shit out there.
So this one person I was talking to at Rose City, she had been doing these rather unique sculptures. They were your classic Greek sculptures that you're all familiar with, except that she had sculpted them as various Star Wars and comic characters. And one of the interesting things I found out from her that she did was she would do the models fairly big, say about 9 inches. And then for the 5 to 6-inch size models, or the same versions, what she would do is she would 3D scan the larger figure and then have a figure for the cast be drawn on a 3D printer at a lower size.
Oh
And-
yeah, 3D printers for statues have really come a long way.
Oh my God, the amount of detail that she was able to capture on the smaller size was amazing. And I'm thinking, well, gee, forget casting big. You sculpt big, you cast that, you send that casting off, you get that printed down smaller. That way you don't have to worry about losing the original and any type of shipping damage. I'm just wondering who here in Tacoma has a scanner that could do something like that.
You might check out the maker spaces. There's a couple of different maker spaces
a place
around
called
town.
Fab Lab here, but I've seen their 3D printer, and they haven't been the type of printers that they have. They haven't upgraded their equipment for about 4 years since they started that space. So
I know there's one in Soto. I don't know what their equipment looks like, but I know there's some up this way, and I know you're all the way down in Tacoma, but you might be able to find
Fab Lab
some.
it's been several months since I've been in Fab Lab. I could ask, see what they've been up to. I also don't know how heavily Fab Lab is used in comparison to some other creative spaces. An interesting business model I was thinking about doing, because there seemed to be a huge demand in it, was a commercial oven space. This has nothing to do with illustration or design, but for a while there, my wife was interested in she loves to bake, and she thought it might be fun to, bake en masse and get her stuff out into stores and the like. But you can't do that at home because of all the licensing requirements for, oven and heat and health code requirements.
Yeah, the health code requirements are a bigger deal than the rest.
And so she was looking into spaces that rent out kitchen space to people who do that type of stuff. For people who do catering and only need a big space whenever they have a big gig. And the rental fees on those places is tremendous. I couldn't believe how much people were willing to pay. And they're booked pretty consistently. And I thought, wow, if you build a commercial kitchen, they will come.
Sounds like a plan. Damn it, where's the sketching?
Speaking of commercials, kitchen, Stowe, how was your lunch today?
What?
Well, don't you eat at Annie Wright, correct?
What?
You eat at Annie Wright.
I can take advantage of the cafeteria of the school that I live in, yes. I did not today, however, since I run a little freelancer get-together about lunchtime. So I normally just have a bagel there, and that is my lunch. And then right after that, I had a meeting with a client that ran up until the point where I had to pick up my kids, and then I had to drop my kids off, and then run here to do this. So I have not had a chance to have anything today, but A bagel, a delicious bagel, which was tasty. Thank you for asking.
You're running on just a bagel?
And cream
I-
cheese.
well,
There
yeah.
was cream cheese on it.
Coffee, lots of coffee.
There you go. Now we're talking.
Yeah. But unlike most people here in the Pacific Northwest, I drink coffee.
I'm curious, how many people in this group are coffee drinkers?
I definitely
Me?
drink coffee.
I am, though I admit that I've been experimenting with abstaining for a little while.
Why would you do that? That is a recipe for a headache.
Or for a good night's sleep, depending on your outlook.
Yeah.
What? Oh, coffee helps you sleep if you do it right.
I mean,
Okay.
that is well, no, that is true. I mean, if you basically think of it as a dosage of caffeine, it actually can be really helpful to sleep, because if you're drinking coffee in the morning and you don't drink coffee after about 3 p.m., then that means the 6-hour half-life cycle will have finished by the time you'd have started to think about going to bed, which means your body's actually going to be in a better state to go to sleep quickly and stay asleep than if you were somebody that never drinks caffeine ever.
That's totally what I meant. Yes.
That's
Exactly.
the kind of logic employed by a true coffee addict, and I applaud.
You know, I am not yet a true coffee addict. That would be my dad's title. He drinks 10 cups of coffee over the course of a day, every
What?
day, and
Oh
has
my
since he
God.
was about 24, when he first started doing recruiting in the Army.
Wow.
Yeah, in fact, he had a bypass surgery that made it so his stomach couldn't hold more than half a cup of anything. He actually swapped me coffee makers, because I have a little tiny cute coffee maker that makes like 4 cups, period. It's just a normal brewer, but it's tiny. And he swapped me for his great big fancy coffee maker that like grinds the beans and puts it in like a heated thermos and does like 15 cups at a time. Because he couldn't physically fit that much coffee in his stomach when he was recovering from bypass surgery.
Wow.
Stomach bypass, by the way, not like heart bypass. My dad had kind of advanced diabetes and was having a lot of trouble losing weight to compensate for the diabetes, so he was actually eligible to get a stomach bypass surgery, and he's actually been doing great since then.
Cool.
It's been, he lost like 120 pounds, and he's kept it off. His biggest problem is like getting enough protein content in because of the way his stomach absorbs stuff now. But no, it's great. His diabetes is almost completely gone because he's lost so much weight, and because of the way it changes like how the pancreas digests the food, because they also take out like a section of your intestines and it reroutes something. I don't know the details. But within 2 years, he had traded me back because he'd gotten back to the point that he was able to drink 10 cups of coffee a day. Like, tiny stomach be damned, my dad still found a way to work back up to that much coffee per day. I don't know what he's supposed to be taking in like 60 grams of protein a day. Like a normal person's supposed to get like 30, and he's supposed to get 60 according to his doctor to make sure he actually absorbs 30 of it. I don't know where he finds room to actually get the protein and other stuff in his system when he's got 10 cups of coffee going through him every day.
Maybe he adds protein powder to his coffee. You know, those
But you can do that, yeah.
A cup of coffee.
You could probably make a really good, like, one of those whey powder shakes with, like, a cup of coffee mixed in.
Is your dad one of those military types that has one mug that he never cleans so that it gets that certain type of coffee coating going in it?
If my mom was not around, yes, he would be. But my mom can be a little bit of a clean freak at times, and she has been known to like steal his coffee cup out from under his nose and go clean it. But like, yeah, no, he'll use the same cup like for the course of the day. And when my mom's like on vacation or something, yeah, he will get that cup that just has like that 0.5 millimeter of like coffee slowly drying and condensing at the bottom from each time it's drained. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's my dad.
Well, I thank your dad for his service to our country, and I am in awe of his coffee drinking ability.
Yeah,
Oh.
he was in the Army for 24 years, and I think he actually was over in Vietnam, and he also actually was in combat during the Gulf War.
Wow.
I
Whoa.
don't know what else. I honestly don't ask him about it too much, because while he's pretty open about parts of it, other parts, he doesn't volunteer information, so I don't ask, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Sure.
Like, I figure it's best to just, like, not make a deal of it if he brings it up, but also not go asking my dad for every grisly detail of 24 years in the military.
I mean, not like you're expecting him to admit to war crimes, but at the same time, triggers are a thing.
No, I don't have that fear at all. Actually, there's a funny story that I got out of my parents recently about...
About war crimes?
No,
Chris, so there's nothing
let me
funny
finish.
about
Okay,
war crimes.
let me tell you why
come
it's a
on, war
tangent.
crime.
No, it actually has nothing to do with active combat at all.
Also,
So-
just crimes in general.
Possibly. Let me finish. Let me start even, guys. So I was born here in Seattle in a hospital that no longer
Oh,
exists.
wow,
that is
this
now
story goes
Northgate
way
Mall.
back, doesn't it?
This story, it goes way back. Way back. A whole 32 years, because I'm not that old. 3 decades in the past, this story began. Yeah, no, I was born in Northgate. I was the only of my siblings to be born in Seattle because they had previously lived in Garden Grove, California. They moved up here because he got stationed up here to Fort Lewis, I think. I'm pointing as if people know which way I'm pointing. Also, that's the wrong direction. That's east. Fort Lewis is that way.
You should point down because that's south, right?
Yeah, Fort Lewis is south of me because I'm up in Renton. So they got stationed in Fort Lewis. Everything's fine. My dad's a recruiter by then. And apparently he'd gotten a bit of a reputation for being the guy that could recruit problem people. Like, if somebody, like, had a nephew or like, a cousin that wanted to get into the military but had some minor problems. Like, apparently he got a bunch of people into the military that had, like, minor pot infractions back in the day. Apparently most of those was that he put them in the Navy because I guess the Navy had looser restrictions on their recruitment than the Army did. He actually got a commendation from the Navy at one point for bringing so many potential people to them. To which his Army commander went, "What is going on with this? I don't want to see you helping the Navy out." But he had... So he was the guy who basically knew, like, the rules and regulations of recruiting people like the back of his hand, so he could get people in for, like, minor infractions, knowing the right paperwork and knowing the right kind of positions they might be recruited to, that other people might just say, "No, you can't be in the Army, go away." And because you move up the ranks by being a good recruiter, getting more people in the Army, and you make friends with other people in the Army by recruiting people into the Army, he was doing pretty good till one of his higher-up commanders had some kind of request to bring someone in from some... This is where it gets vague, and I didn't pry because I don't really want to know what thing was so bad that my dad said no to. But one of his higher-ups wanted him to bend the rules, fudge some paperwork to get somebody in who had something on their rap sheet. And my dad said no. The guy said, "You're going to regret that." My dad said that was his words exactly. And the guy put my dad on the roster to move to Germany a month later.
Oh, jeez.
So we'd only been here for like 5 months. My parents had just closed on a house with a VA loan, which means you can't sell the house without a penalty for 2 years. because everything they'd been told before that point was that, because this was like their 4th or 5th station, so they were told this would be a long-term station, so they put down roots as fast as possible. And then this happened, and my dad got transferred to Germany. And that's how we ended up in Germany for 4 years. But I bring it up because, like, if my dad wasn't willing to bend the rules to get somebody with a slightly shady past in the military, I get the feeling he's not the kind of guy to do war crimes. I felt like that was an interesting story when I found it from my parents. It says something about my dad's character.
Maybe
But what if he
guy-
knew that the Viet Cong had the best coffee ever made? He'd be tempted, I think, right?
Except he drank the shittiest coffee and still
Oh,
drinks
really?
like he is not a connoisseur. He is a quantity guy.
Nice.
But I remember as a kid, all it was those like jumbo things of Folgers
Oh boy.
or U-Band,
geez.
whichever one was cheaper at the store. Like the tins that were like as big around as your head and about like a foot tall.
Yeah, my dad's like your dad. He's just a percolator coffee drinker. He doesn't go in for, if it tastes like battery acid, he'll drink it.
Ugh. For the longest time, I thought coffee was disgusting because my dad would, when I was a kid, if I seemed interested, because it always smelled good, and he'd be like, "Well, if you really want, drink some." And I would take like the tiniest sip and just be like, "Why are you drinking dirt, Dad? Why?" He'd laugh, take his cup back. It's probably good because I didn't start drinking coffee until I was about 20, which is probably a good time to start because there's not really any like health detriments from starting that late that you might have if you drink coffee as like an 8-year-old. So that's my story. And I actually have it thumbnailed out to make a comic of it. I was going to put it in an anthology that Square City Comics was putting together, but my summer was ridiculously busy and I wasn't able to complete it, and I haven't ever gotten back to it. It's just going to be like a little 8-page autobiographical comic.
So, everyone look at my screen. Can you name this obscure movie alien? I know Stowe can.
Oh yeah.
Webby,
Not-
shifty eyes.
Oh, I think so.
That was the Poor Kids E.T. for Pete's sake. Come on.
It was this horrible little thing called Mac and Me.
Oh, right. Oh,
It had the obligatory young kid in the wheelchair scene, or character.
As in, like, he healed a kid and the kid stood up from the wheelchair.
I think that's what happened, yes.
oh. Speaking of bad movies, I really scraped the barrel this week.
Oh, you mean in last week's viewing, or what you're
Last
going for to
Last week's.
tomorrow? What did you end up watching?
Have you ever heard of Head?
Yes, of course I've heard of Head. I'm a Monkeys guy.
Uh huh.
You didn't like Head?
There's so many things
It
wrong
was
with that
All over
sentence.
the place. It was.
I agree.
And the other movie that I saw was Frank, which.
Oh, come on. Frank was a pretty interesting film. I thought it'd be right up your alley.
So did I. I don't know.
Frank is the type of film, Stowe, that RR would absolutely love.
Oh, that does not bode well for it.
It's about this guy
What
who
is-
wears this big giant head. He's a musician.
Oh yeah, I've seen that on Netflix and avoided it.
So, Bill, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give Frank?
6.
And what would you give Head?
4.
Come on, Jack Nicholson wrote Head.
Yeah, I mean, did you hear the story of why it was named that?
No, I didn't.
Apparently, it was a year before the same team was doing Easy Rider, and they wanted to have it advertised as from the makers of Head as part of the drug culture thing.
Victor Mature was in it, playing a parody of Victor Mature, which I thought was hilarious.
We would all agree with you if we knew who that was.
You don't know who Victor Mature is?
Okay, so it's not just me. Sometimes I think it's just because I'm the
Nope,
youngest
not
in the
just
group,
you.
but like, what?
Nope.
Victor Mature was a leading man type. He was owned by one studio, but was often farmed out to other studios. He really got well known for playing in sword and sandal roles, like The Robe and Demetrius and the Lion, and I'm trying to remember, or was it Demetrius and the Gladiators? But anyway, he must have done like 4 or 5 sword and sandal movies that were very popular back in the day.
What is the word you keep using?
Sword and sandal?
Lawrence of
Sword
Arabia,
and-
but not good.
Sword
Sandal,
and
gotcha.
sandal. Okay, so basically you had these people in swords, wearing sandals, wearing swords.
Wearing swords, carrying sandals.
But the movies like The Robe, let's see, I'm trying to remember a few others. He was also did a number of noir movies like A Kiss of Death, which you can see on Netflix or on the DVD. Yeah, I think I got it on DVD from Netflix. But he never took himself too seriously as a movie actor. One time, he was asked what he did for, when he was arrested, he was asked what he did for a living. He says, I play golf. And one of the cops said, wait a minute, I thought you were a movie actor. No, he said, I thought you said you were an actor. He says, no, I'm a movie star. Has nothing to do with acting. No, that was her like, oh. Now I remember, he says, something along the lines of, I thought you were in movies and were a movie star. And he said, have you seen, and you were aren't you an actor? And he says, have you seen my movies? So he didn't take himself too seriously, which is one of the reasons why they had him parodying himself in Head. And I thought that was hilarious. The man has some of the thickest eyelashes you've ever seen. And he's got this kind of half closed eye type gaze that women in the 40s thought was very dreamy. Can't believe nobody here knows Victor Mature.
I know of him.
Well, you saw him. Of course you know of him.
Yeah.
Now, when I first saw Head, I was a little disappointed, but then again, I think I was only like 13. I was expecting something more like the Monkey Show, but in a 2-hour format. And what I got was this weird, trippy movie. I sometimes wonder if they were trying to tap into the HR Puff and Stuff crowd.
That would explain a lot.
There's a joke there. There really is. I wish I knew what it was.
Okay, you're familiar with HR Puff and
I know
Stuff,
it, yes, I'm aware of what it is, yes.
but do you know why it did so well on TV?
Well, I was 3, maybe, when it was out, so probably not.
So it's this children's mid-morning TV show for kids.
Right, that's why I watched it.
Okay. Well, it turned out a fair percentage of the viewers were people who were smoking pot and were stoned out of their gills. But they just loved the show because it was wild, man.
It was the same reason why SpongeBob was so popular.
Oh my God. SpongeBob, the only cartoon I know of that was been scientifically proven to lower IQs.
What? No, clearly
Yeah,
it was
they did a study and they showed that children who watched SpongeBob SquarePants, that their IQ actually fell
What?
from watching the show.
That's junk science you're quoting.
That does sound like junk science.
SpongeBob is great. Don't diss SpongeBob.
It's okay.
Yeah,
They
I
found
agree.
that children that watched Sesame Street actually had shorter attention spans.
Hey,
No, this is
You-
actually interesting. It wasn't just Sesame Street, but Sesame Street started a format where they broke the show up into smaller segments. And they noticed it with other shows that did the same thing. So instead of it being like one continuous storyline across the 30 minutes, it was lots of little like 3 to 5 minute story segments. And they found that children throughout that same generation who had watched shows of a similar format tended to have a harder time paying attention and recalling facts from longer periods of attention. So like if they were being talked to for a longer period or like watching a longer show. So it's not that Sesame Street did that, but Sesame Street kind of started that format and a lot of things followed that format then.
So this gets back to our earlier conversation I was having about me and Daniel Abraham, and we trimmed our lawn artist videos down from 7 minutes to 3 minutes, which seems to be the maximum attention span for most YouTubers.
Clearly, you've never seen my son watch YouTube.
Yeah, it
That
definitely depends on the content on YouTube, because there's things that are like TV shows on YouTube, basically. And then there's things that are more factual. And it does seem like
Then-
the more the non-fiction stuff, the more factual learning-based stuff, it seems like a lot of people are going to a format where the individual videos are more short.
Yeah, I know my son watches a lot of video game playthroughs, and he can just watch those for hours.
I gotta say, my husband watches those too, and I don't get it.
Oh, I don't get
I
it.
just-
I don't get it at all. Not even a
I
tiny
don't-
little.
I don't have fun like watching other people play a game that I could be playing myself.
Shoot, I don't.
But
even
then
have
again, I
fun.
also don't really watch like sports either for the same reason.
well, I'm kind of, I grew up where me and my brother, we had one Nintendo between us, and our cousins had one Nintendo. So we would like buy a game and then share it between us. and it might be like 4 of my cousins and me and my brother, so it'd be 6 kids. And obviously we did like the 1-player game, so only one person could play at a time. So like I get how you can watch someone else play a game for that long a period of time. However, it's kind of odd that phenomenon still exists, because I feel like every kid has like a Game Boy, a portable gaming system, everything for themselves, and the phenomenon of like co-op games. I'm a little bit surprised that people could still sit there and watch somebody else play for a long time.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is past 5:30, and since I'm hosting, I'm going to have to call this a night.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm glad I'm back.
Stowe, will you be able to host from now on again?
I should be able to, although I might have to start. I might not be able to start right at 4:30, but
Slightly after 4:30.
if that's all right with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That would actually be even a little better for me.
Works for me.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, then I'll start hosting again come next week.
Okay.
Very good. Nice seeing you all again.
Yeah. Same here.
Rah.